Hello everyone and welcome back to Ancient Nagash channel dedicated to Sigmar, and in this video we are going to be talking about why play Sylvaneth. So the idea of this video is if you're thinking about playing Sylvaneth but you haven't started them or you just started and want to get a few ideas, hopefully by the end of this video you'll decide if Sylvaneth are the army for you. And if you've already started them, just maybe a bit more encouragement behind it. And how we're going to do that is mainly look at sort of strengths and weaknesses of the army itself. But before we go into all of that, firstly, who are the Sylvaneth? So they are basically the tree part of the Wood Elves from Warhammer Fantasy, going forward into Age of Sigmar, where they became their own faction within Grand Alliance Order. And from there they have really sort of built on that tree theme and sort of staying away from the sort of elven look of traditional sort of Wood Elves, like think of archers, all that sort of thing. They've taken a step back and sort of redesigned. They are essentially, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, Ents, tree people. That's basically the Warhammer version. However, I don't want you to think that Sylvaneth are just a copy and paste of Ents and other things of that type, because, well, Sylvaneth are a little bit more cruel and a little bit more fed up with not just humanity, but every other race apart from them. If you look at sort of, the Ents of Lord of the Rings, they're only going for the film stuff of it, but like all the tree people and stuff, they're sort of like grumble about, like modern civilization sort of, like expanding into the woodlands and all, not happy about it, but that's really about it. It's sort of like mumble and grumble. These guys will sort of skin you alive, put seeds inside you, so then like flowers blossom from like your muscles and all that sort of thing, and basically shove bamboo up your fingernails, all that sort of things. If you by happen to stand into their grove and you had no idea that this area was the Sylvaneth and all that sort of thing, I don't know, you're playing football in the Mortal Realms, that sort of thing, you kick your ball into over the fence and it goes into the woodlands, you think, I'll just quickly go get that. You go down there completely ignorant and oblivious that this is a Sylvaneth Wildwood, and I don't know, you're a 10-year-old child. The trees do not really care about any of the circumstances around this. They just care that you are not welcome in this forest, and instead of like what the Wanderers might do by giving you a warning shot or something like that to make you then go, oh bloody hell, I'll get out of the woods now and I won't go back there again, the Sylvaneth will do something more along the lines of just, how do I say it, kill you in potentially a quick way, but more agonising, to use you as an example, and then they'll sort of like not pin you up, but they'll sort of like root you onto a tree or something, just so everyone can be aware of not to go into that forest again. That's their sort of deterrent they use. But the Sylvaneth, beyond them seem like these like dark creatures from the deep wood, that sort of thing, they are the most natural race in the mortal realms. Really, they're all about abundance of life, and it's not like they're evil, that's why they're killing people and all that sort of thing. They'd rather not. They'd rather just be left alone like they were in the Age of Myth, and everything was nice and they were like blossoming and all that sort of thing, and life was great, and then the Age of Chaos came and made them all very angry, and it started like a big season of war now, and the Sylvaneth are basically essentially on the reaping of taking back land that belonged to them. So a lot of this is like sort of against Nurgle, who invaded the realm of life. Guy ran and essentially has gone, yeah, I want all this Sylvaneth domain, I want all the wall grows, I want everything, it's all mine. And Alero has eventually, for the last few years, given the fight back to Nurgle. And it's not just the realm of life. The Sylvaneth in the Age of Myth did expand into all the other realms as well. So that explains why you can have ones that look like they've got sort of like charcoal bark, or you got some that are like in a frozen, like wasteland, or you got some that are in, like I don't know, a desert in Gur, the realm of beasts, or you got some who are, like on lava. All these sorts of things explain why all the Sylvaneth are not just the same, but they do all sort of like beckon back to Alariel, who is their leader, their god, but really God in the truest sense, as Alera essentially is the ones who gave birth to the Sylvaneth. They wouldn't be there if it wasn't for her, and in return there was basically a bit where the Sylvaneth had to replant her to make her more angry, which sounds a little bit confusing. But it's all Age of Sigmar, so it's all fine, and like Magic answers all of these unanswered questions of how things happen, and also novels and lots of background writing and hard work. Right, okay, so that's essentially a very quick reference of what the Sylvaneth are. Tree people, most people know what that is, wood elves, that sort of thing. So just to check if you guys are going to like Sylvaneth, essentially, do you like trees? Do you like moving trees? Do you like trees that talk in a very hard to understand way? Do you like very aggressive trees? Do you like trees that torture their enemies like the Japanese Empire did in World War II? Also, do you like things like nature, green spaces, woodlands, forests? Are you an outdoorsy person? Do you like the summer? Then again, you're going to have them sort of like autumn foliage, can't you, the Sylvaneth? So I suppose, do you like autumn? And then you have like the winter leaf grove, which is all snow. So do you like winter? And then you can have them sort of like budding, can't you? So do you like spring? Do you like any of the seasons? And like I mentioned before, if you like Lord of the Rings, Ents, that sort of thing, tree people, wood elves, this is certainly going to be the army for you so far. So, now that we sort of talked essentially what the Sylvaneth are, let's talk about more sort of in terms of, like reality on the tabletop, all those sorts of things, actually collecting the army. So firstly, and this is all, obviously from my opinion, I think they have a really nice model range because I liked all the things that I just said above. Sort of like, woodlands, greens. I grew up in the country, so forests and stuff are quite like a nice homely feeling to me. I didn't grow up in a tree, but I did grow up, surrounded by forests and all that sort of thing. So it has a nice sort of like homing, nostalgia effect for me. So that's very much why I like it. There's also another just simple things about the model ranges that they have. It's filled with large focal points for your army. It's not just like you have one tree lord. You could just have one, but you could have several and all that sort of thing. And then you have like smaller trees underneath it, which obviously just, makes nice sort of focal points for your army. And then you can have even a bigger centerpiece of like a Lariel in the middle, who is, in my honest opinion, a fantastic model. She does not skip leg day for sure. The other reason I really like the army, and it's a reason why a lot of other people like the army and why you may like it as well, is because it allows you to be really creative for theming the army with things like just like where they're from, what realm they're from, what part of the realm, like all these sort of things I mentioned before, like all the seasons, if they're on like lava bases, if they're on snowy bases, if they're on sandy bases, if they're on like dirt or wasteland bases, if they're in like infected Nurgle soil bases, and of course the sort of traditional, nice, lush green grass and all of these sorts of things and like flowers and all that sort of thing. That's sort of how I'm basing my ones. But what I'm trying to say is there's no reason why you have to feel like you have to base them as like most forests, like moss and grass and all that sort of thing, and lots of life. You can go more different, a bit more unique if you would really like to. And that also extends to the colour of their bark as well. You can just do them brown with green leaves. And I know that sounds quite simple, and you've seen it a lot before, but to be honest, it is a really nice sort of vibrant colour. But you can do it like white bark as well, like I'm doing, like a marlin of white bark and like pink leaves, foliage, so I think that stands out quite nicely. You can do things like a really good gaming buddy of mine who's from my local store on like Instagram, it's called Trash Panda Projects. He's done his as like basically ashy Sylvaneth, where they are charcoal bark with like spits of sort of like flame within all their cracks, which is really cool, and then like white skin, and that is a really nice cool effect. And actually, funny enough, they were left in a cabinet when our local Games Workshop burnt down, so luckily they survived in the cabinet, and they've got like a nice smoky sense to them as well, so they sort of like really fit that sort of like ashen theme now by like the actor gone, I suppose. So there's lots of different things you can do with it. There's also things I've seen where people buy like model foliage and all that sort of thing to put over the trees just to make them look like they've got more leaves and all that sort of thing. You can do that. And really your imagination is your only limitation on how you want to theme the army, which is, I think, one of the coolest parts about this army. There are some of our armies that have got that, but there are traditionally some armies out there that are like, this is just how the army looks. With these guys, you can really change up. You can even do things like Sylvaneth in the Realm of Death, which I've seen some people do. But I just can't remember their names stuff, but they've done things like this. Even just little things like they obviously make the bases look more deathly, you know, like bones and all that sort of thing. But they've also replaced the a lot of the heads, like Kernel Hunters, with like skulls you get from the Skull Pack from Games Workshop, stuff like that, just to make them look more deathly. There's also in the Realm Slayer, which is like the Gotrek series for Age of Sigmar. I've only listened to a little bit of it, but from what I remember from the first one is there's a bit where they're going through the Realm of Death, I believe it is, and they get attacked by Chaos Corrupted Undead Sylvaneth, I think is what it was called. It was very late at night and it was driving quite a long time on the motorway by the time I got to that bit in the story, but I think that is what the Sylvaneth were at that part. They were Chaos Corrupted and undead. So, you know, you can almost imagine what that looks like. Really quite horrifying things, you know, and it's the good ones that torture you horrendously. So what are these ones going to do to you? So there's lots of different ways you can theme the army. You can make them look as good and as pleasant and as lovely and, you know, lifeful cheeriness, as, you know, like it's a great world after all, that sort of thing. Or you can make them go really dark. It's completely up to you. So yeah, that's really the sort of theming aspects of the army. But when it comes to building your army, you know, buying the models and all that sort of thing, to be honest, there's quite a lot of ways you can do it. At first, you may look at it and you think, well, it hasn't got the massive model range of like Stormcast Eternals, or, you know, like some other armies have, which is absolutely true. Hasn't got the massive model range. However, in Age of Sigmar, model ranges are quite, shall we say, a lot of discrepancy within them, because you've got things like I said, Stormcaster Lows, and you've got things like Iron Jaws, which is like one of the smallest. So really, Sylvaneth haven't got it too bad. And within that, like I said, there's lots of ways to build your army. So you could go Horde with Dryads, or you could go more elite infantry with things like lots of Tree Remnants and Spike Remnants. You know, because they're also battle line in the Sylvaneth army. Or you can take a minimum battle line, you know, options, just 3 of the cheapest, whatever you want to do, and go like super elite with like Kernel Hunters, as they are very cool, nice looking models and certainly quite new. And then you can also, if you really wanted to go elite, take minimum battle line, like I said, and go things like Tree Lords, True Ancients and Spirit of Durthus along that way. And there's battalions to represent each one of those sort of play styles. Which is cool. It's not like, oh, you only have to take this way, which is nice. Obviously some are better than others, but really it just comes down to experience. Okay, so that's sort of talking about collecting the army, and I'm sort of talking about a little bit of tactics of how they play on the table, looking at their strengths. So this army, if I haven't mentioned it enough, it really loves trees, and especially in the form of Sylvaneth Wildwoods. So these Sylvaneth Wildwoods are the terrain feature for the Sylvaneth, and they recently got an update in model kit, as there was the older sort of more traditional forest base terrain feature, which was turned into the Sylvaneth Wildwood, but now they've actually got their designated own designed one, which some people weren't happy with, because a lot of people were stocked up on the older sort of Wildwood bases for the scenery kits and had built and painted them, and then suddenly been told can't really use them, or they weren't encouraged to use them, and they should buy the new ones, which I completely understand the anger there. But, you know, it's been, what, 9 months, a year? I can't remember, since the latest Sylvaneth Battletome. Around that, probably about that sort of time. And the new woods are just a lot better. They're just easier to deploy onto the table, because that's a big thing about the army. With these Sylvaneth Wildwoods, you really want to start with a minimum of 1 box of these, okay? So that would be 3 separate trees that when they unite, they make a circle, and that is a Sylvaneth Wildwood. And that's the minimum to create 1, and you can take 1 to your game, so you definitely want that. Realistically, you can take 1 to your games, but it can be 2 boxes of Sylvaneth Wildwoods, because a single Sylvaneth Wildwood can be made up between 3 to 6 trees, and you get 3 trees in each box. So you want 2 boxes to start with the best you can, and then there are going to be circumstances in the game through rules and abilities that allow you to set up more trees, and you really want as many trees on the board as possible, so you're going to want to stock on these quite a bit. And the main reason for that is because you can use the trees to do damage to your enemy. There are other shenanigans you can do with them, but the biggest one is you can use the trees for teleportation. So that leads into the other thing about the Sylvaneth, is their main sort of play is being able to teleport. for the army. It's what is one of their strongest points for the army, tactics-wise. And also, it's the thing that's going to win you quite a few of your games, just because the enemy won't be able to cover enough of the board to stop you teleporting, because you have to be like 9 inches away from the enemy. And it means you could snack an objective right at the end of the game. And if the enemy is sort of trying to block you off from being able to sort of teleport throughout your Wildwoods, then they are putting quite a lot of effort into doing that, more than likely. And because of doing that, they can't focus on everything else going on in the game. So they really are a big thing to do, this army, and where I think a lot of their tactics lie into the deployment of those forests and teleporting your troops through them. Also, the terrain feature looks cool as well, which does always help, and it's quite a nice large terrain feature too, which is cool. Okay, so something else to say about the army, now that we've covered the Sylvaneth Wildwoods, and like I said, that's quite a big part of the army. I wouldn't play this army without the Wildwoods unless you're doing it on a budget or something along those lines, or you can't at the moment, because obviously everything that's going on in the world, you can't order stuff, but, you know, it's not the main priority right now. Anyway, so other things to say about the army is that I mentioned earlier that it feels like a Wood Elf army to an extent, because it was partly the Wood Elf range from Fantasy. So you would naturally think that, oh, this army, you know, is a shooting army, that sort of thing. Now, whilst you can have some not bad shooting in this army and quite good shooting, it's not really encouraging you to focus all your attention on the shooting. Basically, you've got Kernel Hunters with bows who can fire, which the shooting attacks aren't bad, but you could like base the whole army around it if you wanted to, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. So you've got shooting as an option, and you've also got, you know, Lair with a spear, you've got Dreicher for, like, you know, bees and hornets, and then you've got like Spirit of Durfu, who's got not a bad one. You've got the True Lord Ancient, who's one shot but not a bad one as well. So there is shooting in this army, and it's not bad shooting, but it's not enough for you to focus the entire army on it, is what I would say. But it's always good to have the option of shooting in the army, just to be able to snipe out like enemy characters hiding at the back, which add a lot of synergy to the enemy's army. If you've just got an all a melee army and no real sort of like offensive spells, it's going to be hard to take out those key synergy pieces of the enemy's army. This army can do it for you. And Alariel's spear is like 30 inches, I believe, so that is pretty solid. Okay, so another really thing to say about this army is it has a lot of wizards in the army, but there's a caveat to that, and that is that they are mainly one-cast wizards, so they can only cast and unbind one spell, apart from Malariel, who can do cast 3 spells and unbind 3 spells. So, on one hand, you've got, it feels like it's an army with loads of magic in it, because a lot of your heroes are wizards, but they're not the best wizards. However, the spell lore isn't the most, you know, game-changing out there in terms of how amazing it is, but it's not bad, and some of the spells can certainly be useful. Like, I think a Regrowth is the one that allows you to heal D6 wounds. Things like that. You can piss off Wildwoods, you know, to make the enemy take damage. There are a lot of cool things here, which can be very useful and can be good. So you've also got good healing in the army. Like I said, Regrowth, there are other ways to do that. You've got good synergy in the army with command abilities and other abilities. And the other good thing about the synergy in the army is Kernel Hunters really are a good way for you to be able to extend on synergy. And what I mean by that, with their ability to be able to increase the range of command abilities, because a lot of abilities and special command abilities these days are wholly within, you know, 12 inches or whatever it is always wholly within. They tend to be, which massively shortens down range. So being able to increase that wholly within bubble makes a big difference, certainly. So yeah, there's useful there. It's just another reason. If you think, oh, they look cool, but are they really how I want to play the army? Taking those things, to be honest, they're good, and also they help out your army synergy as well. So it's 2 ticks for me. So you've got that as well. The other thing to say about the army is it's got some good battalions. Some battalions that make the enemy not be able to retreat. Some increase your movement. And they're not really too expensive either. Are they all worth it? Probably not. But even just saying a few of them will maybe be worth it is better than most other armies out there. So battalions are one of those things that I used to love them, because it used to be quite a really cool way to build your army, but most of them these days, unless they're broken, are not really worth taking. But yeah, so that's sort of like a lot of the strengths of the army. Going into inevitably talk about some weaknesses, got to be honest. So sort of like gameplay reasons, weaknesses. Mortal wounds. So the army, their big heroes have pretty good saves. There's a lot of free up saves, but a lot of the other stuff, majority army, sort of 5s and maybe 4s. So a lot of your infantry, even like your tree revenants, just bite revenants, that, you know, quite elite infantry, they've only got 5 up saves. So it's not fantastic, and mortal wounds will melt the things with 3 up saves, in all honesty. They do not have a attack first mechanic as far as I remember, apart from the double ganger cloak. Obviously you can take, as far as I'm aware, they don't have one of those, so they can't really play that game. They don't really have amazing traits, artifacts and sub-allegiances compared to, you know, like the top armies of Age of Sigmar. But really, the biggest thing when we look at their weaknesses, you know, there's a bit of stigma for the Sylvaneth, and I wanted to save it until the end of the video, like now, because I didn't want to start off by saying this, because there's a lot of negative thoughts around them in the game, and that's not because people don't like them, it's just how they play. So, what I have to say about Sylvaneth is that a lot of people out there are saying that it's an unplayable army. Now, I have to be honest with you guys, I don't massively actually play this army, so I haven't got the most experience in it, but what I can tell you is that they are very much playable, alright? They would just struggle to go toe-to-toe with overpowered and broken armies winning tournaments. So, you know, people can criticise my determination of, you know, broken and overpowered, but whatever you want to say, things like Sinesh, Sinesh, I mean, Zeech, Flesh-Eater Courts, things like that, Sylvaneth are really going to struggle to fight them. But most other armies that aren't broken will struggle to fight them anyway. You know, Sylvaneth would be great to fight things with other armies I still think are very good, but not broken. Things like, you know, More Tribes, Slaves to Darkness, Cowden Overlords, Nighthaunt. It's just a lot more fun. Also, to chuck up with, you know, overpowered armies, you know, Bone Reapers. You know, those armies are always going to be a struggle to fight with, alright? Against. But, you know, if you're taking a Sylvaneth army, you're not trying to win a tournament. I mean, like, it's a shame that I can't say that, oh, well, you can't win a tournament with them, because I'm sure there's someone out there who can prove me wrong in the meta at the moment. But it's just against those really top armies. But like I say, most other armies are going to struggle against that. And I have to be honest, like I say, Sylvaneth, I'd say they are not the easiest army to win with, but that's purely because they are not broken, like I say, and require you to play the game as the general and win the game by you being coming up with your own strategies that work, rather than the army is broken and the army wins the game for you. And it's being a case of, if you win the game, you've done a good job here. It's not, if you lose the game, I've done a bad job because of this. With this certain army, you should have won that game. It all comes down to you, which means, yep, if you compare them to, if you took Bone Reapers, which I reviewed in the last video, or Flesh-Eater Courts, any of these other armies that I do like as well, if you compare Sylvaneth to them, it's going to be harder for you to win your games, but it means when you do win your games, it's going to be worth more to you, really, and just shows that you're a better player, in my honest opinion. Also, I do want to say with that note, because of this stigma, it means that they're not the biggest popular army at the moment. They're not the most expensive because you can get them second hand and all that sort of thing. And also, the army is really fun to play, right? Against most other armies. That's the thing. When you're not fighting against broken armies, at the point I'm over-labouring to you guys. It's a great army to play with. There's, you know, there's lots of strategy you can do with it. There's a lot of... like I say, you have to be careful of placement with teleport and all that sort of thing. It's not an army that you just go, right, push forward, unless you just go Spirits of Durthies. I don't know, maybe you can do that. It's an army that requires you to think, and I think those are the best armies because I play the game because I like the challenge, you know, in the game. And I don't always win all my games, but I certainly do like the challenge and the fun of it, rather than just, this army should win me the game, move forward. That's why I don't play Flesh-Eater Courts as much, that sort of thing. So I still like those armies, but at the moment I want to try something that's going to challenge me a lot. Well, I think challenging yourself is always a good thing. And like I say, the army is really fun. And And because, like I say, not loads of people playing it at the moment, if you can find a way to make a great synergizing list and win a shitload of games with Sylvaneth, you're doing something most other people can't. And really, like I say, that is just down to your experience. Okay, guys, so like I say, Sylvaneth, there are some negative points, but in my honest opinion, like I say, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, the strengths far outweigh the weaknesses of why I'd like to do this army. And I do actually have, I'm thinking like I have a few Sylvaneth models here and there, but I really do actually have more than I think, because I've got like, I think like 20 Dryads, 6 Kernoth Hunters, a Tree Lord, maybe another Tree Lord, that can be an Ancient Durfu, whatever, that's still new on Sprue. I also have Drycha and Alariel, so I really do actually have quite a bit of Sylvaneth that I really could start working on. And because obviously what's going on in the world right now with mass quarantine time in the UK, so there's a lockdown, and I may do a video on this, but really it's just a good example of why you can crack on with all your sort of long lost projects. And something else to say about Sylvaneth before I go sort of on the weakness side, because a lot of their offensive capabilities, in the sense of pissing off a wildwood and making it damage enemies nearby, and their endless spells that aren't too bad either, they're quite cool, certainly look nice. A lot of those abilities that are offensive through spells tend to affect everyone who are not Sylvaneth. So if you take allies you think, oh, Wanderers would be cool to chuck in here, just bear in mind that it may mean they can take damage if a forest gets pissed off when you didn't mean to. So just one thing there. But apart from that small little circumstance, just wanted to let you guys know that. However, like I say, guys, that's the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope it sort of cleared up if you like to do Sylvaneth or not. Like I say, for me, one of my favourite looking armies, because a lot of it is down to nostalgia, guys. I'm not going to lie. But also, I just think the models are awesome. I love the theme. From someone who, you know, Age Nagash here, who loves death and just that sort of theme, I do like the idea of abundance of life. That is not Nurgle, and also the world is sort of against Nurgle at the moment. I do like the idea of having, you know, like lush green, you know, bases, like the sort of picture I put up earlier in the sort of the community part of the channel and also on Instagram. Sort of like colour schemes. I do think that is really cool, and to be honest, it's a nice different way for me to paint. Okay, guys, so like I say, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe and comment down below, as that does massively help the channel. It's absolutely free for you guys to do so. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons who always support the channel, do a great job, and really do help me make as many videos as I can. And yeah, with that, guys, got any questions, leave them down in the comments. So remember, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.